Welcome to Peralta Matters. I'm your host, Jay Calhoun. This is the show where we talk about all things that matter to Peralta and the community colleges. Our guest tonight is Ron Gerhard, Vice Chancellor of Finance for the Peralta Community College District. Ron, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Great, great. Let's start basically with a little bit of your services for the district. Give us a background of what you do and how you do it.
What I do? Well, as Vice Chancellor for Finance, I'm ultimately responsible for budget, accounts payable, purchasing, and everything involving money, if you will. So it's somewhat broad-ranging.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Given the national problems with money, given the state problems with budget fixing, and our own challenges within the district, give us an overview, an ideal synopsis of what we're facing right now financially.
Well, nationally, it's, you know, you read newspapers as well as I do, you know, and in the state level as well. We're in a mess. Some economists say we're at the bottom of recession, and there's some improvement, but you know, we're not necessarily seeing that very timely.
Right.
So as a result, in translating it to what it means to Peralta, we're having to provide the services that is expected of us by our community and constituents with fewer resources. And ultimately, at the end of the day, that's the question on how to do that and how to do that adequately.
Are there some specific numbers to these glaring disparities that we're having here?
Well, you know, at the state level, a few weeks ago, the governor signed a budget that essentially, you know, depending on your use of the terminology, closed a budget of approximately $19 billion. Now, there were some difficult decisions that had to be made in order to close that.
Right.
And, you know, in many respects, community colleges fared very well compared to some of the social service programs.
Right.
But to community colleges, you know, it essentially, you know, there was some additional funding for us for serving more students for growth, but you know, we're never have been fully funded. So you know, it's pretty much the same story for us as it has been in the past, serving more students with fewer dollars.
Speaking of that, serving more students with fewer dollars, where, for those who don't know, there's a FTES, which stands for full-time equivalency of students. So you have a certain amount that you get for that, and then you have this overage of students who need the same services, who need the same classes. Who pays for those students?
Well, ultimately, it's everybody. For just using numbers as an example, last year we served approximately 22,000 full-time equivalent students. Okay. But yet we were only paid for approximately 19,000. So we served 3,000 more students on that workload measure, full-time equivalent students, that we were paid for. So, you know, essentially it was, you know, trying to spread those dollars as thinly as we possibly can to serve as many. Now you can, you know, from a finance perspective, you can only do that structurally for so long because ultimately you have the increase in costs related to, you know, serving those students, those additional students. And it, as it has here in the past, reduced our reserves, our fund balance. And so now we're at a point that we had to bring our revenues in alignment with the number of students that we're serving. And so, you know, it was a difficult decision and a very, you know, I wouldn't say a popular one, because essentially, you know, in bringing your revenues in alignment with your expenses, some things that continuously had been there in the past can continue.
Right.
So,
speaking of the governor's passing or the state budget being passed, we talked earlier about the cut to categorical programs and the cut to the new workforce programs. Does that again become another creative challenge for you to find a way to, one, keep some programs that are definitely essential to these students, at the same token, like you said, match what we actually have to deal with.
Right, absolutely. And these categorical programs include DSPS,
right.
EOPS,
right.
CalWorks, CARE, many of the vital and critical support
yes.
services that
yes.
that our student population needs
mm-hmm.
to be successful and matriculate.
Yeah.
Last year, the cuts ranged in magnitude from 12%, some up
wow.
to 16%. So, you know, they have been devastated.
mm-hmm.
This year, we thought that perhaps there was going to be some relief and some augmentation
right.
of those programs. But as of last week, the governor signed a trailer bill that actually eliminated from the budget additional monies that initially thought we were going to receive. So, you know, right now we're in a holding pattern. You know, essentially, you know, bringing our budgets in alignment and serving as many students as we possibly can with the resources we have. What
can a community, what can we as a student body, what can we as an organizing base who support these students and these funds that go on in these colleges, what can we do to help? What can it possibly be done on a more grassroots level, not so much the district or the teachers, but, you know, what can some other things be done to help this problem that we have district-wide?
Right. You know, I would say at a more grassroots level, and is really advocate, telling our leaders, politicians, telling our story, telling, you know, basically community colleges are as mentioned before, never have been fully funded, but, you know, at the same time we are serving retraining, you know, everything else related to, you know, students in our, you know, in our constituent group, for the workforce, ultimately improving our economy and going back to the tax base. So I would say, you know, the easiest thing, in my perspective, would be to advocate and to tell our story, and make sure that the leaders in Sacramento or wherever understand that community colleges for our communities and for the state as an economic engine are critical and vital, and you know, cut in funding does dramatically more than just balance a budget, but it impacts future budgets. I would say that'd probably be the easiest thing that can be done. But there are a few other things that community colleges around the state are doing, you know, ranging from advocacy all the way up to taking to their voters parcel taxes, which is would be a bridge to that to some degree. But you know, it all depends upon the temperament of the community, what they're willing to do.
Definitely. Well, considering that this is a fairly new spot for you and a new position, we want to officially welcome you to the Bay Area.
Thank you.
Definitely thank you for coming on the show. Again, I think it's informative and extremely important that people know not just the stuff we read in the newspapers, the big numbers, the 12 billion missing, the this, that, and the other, but actually the fundamental roots of how we do our jobs and what's going on at Peralta. So again, thanks, Ron, for spreading that out for us. We appreciate it.
Thank you for allowing me to get on here and tell the message.
Yeah, right. We'll have you again. We just talked to Ron Gerhard, Vice Chancellor of Finance for the Peralta Community College District. We'll be back in a few minutes to talk to our next guest.
I'm a veteran, and I was looking into some of the trades. Signing up for classes at College of Alameda was really easy because you have the online stuff, and then the administration building was really helpful. The VA department, speaking with the dean, it was really easy to just get all the paperwork done and get going in the class. It's an easy transition from the military in Iraq to coming into here.
I'm Congresswoman Barbara Lee. Join me in watching Peralta TV.
Welcome back to Peralta Matters. I'm your host, Jay Calhoun. Our next guest is Rich Copenhagen. He's the president of Save Our Schools at the College of Alameda. Rich, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Great, great. We are talking budget tonight, and we've heard from our chief financial officer or the vice chancellor of finances. Now we want to talk about the budget in the perspective of the students. So, you know, without going any further, we all know the problems and the crisis. How are the students affected by these massive cuts?
Well, first of all, I mean, it's pretty obvious with all of the massive amount of students in the classrooms, people not being able to get desks, people not even being able to get in the classroom for some classes at the beginning of semesters. We're losing a huge amount of students on campus, which in turn affects student life. So there are less club activities, less student government, a very large decrease in the amount of things going on campus, like events and whatever. Also, we're ending up with serious loss of functionality of some of the programs on the campus. So we don't have like a like our F building, right? Our student center at College of Alameda is only open until 3, which is when the student government leaves.
Wow.
It used to be open until 7 or 8. And so right now that's causing some serious issues for a lot of people on campus because you can't access that area. There's, you know, clubs used to be able to have rooms there or whatever, you know, whatever it is. So that's been a serious issue for us.
What are, as a student, you're seeing, you're hearing, you're witnessing the closing of classes, the services being cut. Considering that we all know the understanding of the state's budget affecting the Peralta budget, what are students collectively doing to not only meet these challenges, but kind of, you know, hedge them before they become a challenge?
So up until now, it's been kind of a shock, like a surprise, because the Peralta district has done a lot of borrowing and trying to fund extra students, which the state isn't funding. And so now it's been a shock with so many cuts that have happened, as you've already discussed. So now students are starting to say, okay, well now we know what's going on, now we want to organize around it. At College of Alameda specifically, which is where my club is, we're trying to work with the administration, we're trying to get active committees, people working solely for creative solutions around the budget cuts. We're trying to fill positions which have been lost, like our public information officer is out right now, and so we're trying to fill in, well, what do we do about a newsletter, things like that. So we're trying to figure out ways that we can alleviate these budget issues.
The Vice Chancellor spoke about the necessary need for, or the necessity rather, for a grassroots fundamental, just at least a push towards the emphasis being on what's really going on. And to do that in a voter type way, or to legislatively find some way to do that. I know that there's a state, you know, conference coming up and all that kind of stuff. What do you see on the ground level your students doing on a legislative level to actually make some changes so that we don't get caught in this borrowing situation again?
Yeah, I think it's very important for students to get active and to start realizing how much power they have. There's such a large base of people in California, especially, and actually all across the state, or sorry, across the country, of younger people, so students, and so there's who don't vote or who don't educate other people on what's going on. So you end up with a lot of uneducated older people who just vote according to advertisement and vote according to that. And it's really the responsibility of students, and really a thing that people can do is to educate around and spread their knowledge, because what we're getting here at the community college is a better understanding, critical thinking, ways to evaluate what's actually going on. And so just like Prop 25 is coming up, or, you know, I don't really want to plug political views, but there are ways that the legislation can be worked with, so we can work both with student government and with grassroots, and both together we can provide pressure both legislatively and socially to make things happen.
You know, you touched on a good point, that at this level of the game, being at these colleges and being as involved as you are, you're actually seeing the outside or the quote unquote real world that you hear so often in classrooms. You know what I mean? This is right now in your face. This is exactly what you're going to face upon graduation. You know, these quote unquote financial decisions that you have to make that are based on people's livelihoods, people's jobs, people's abilities and extensions to learn more. You know, how do you see your students coping with that? Or how do you see your fellow students, you know, actually dealing with these new now challenges that are really, you know, above and beyond going to school and getting an A?
I think it's a very interesting challenge because in a lot of in a lot of K-12 schools, you're really taught to just go, get an A, get an A, get an A, and go to college.
Exactly.
And so now it's really on college students to say, okay, well, I take all my A's, I take all of, you know, this position I've been granted at a UC or a CC or, you know, even a CSU, and wherever you are, even a private university. And you take that knowledge that you've acquired up to now, you've taken the discipline, you've got all of these things going for you, and instead of just applying it to your job and then not paying attention to what's going on, you can now expand your horizon and really start to organize around the issues that are happening and realizing your power, because it is a state of the people. It's not just, you know, whoever gets elected and you just have a limited choice. People can really come from a community college or, you know, wherever, and really start working their way up into legislation and start making differences that way.
Again, Rich, I wanted to commend you because I believe that most of the social phenomena in this country and the history of social phenomena has really been started or charged by young people. So again, I think it's important that you guys are commended for your work, you know, and doing what you're supposed to do. Our hats off to all of you at Save Our Schools, and especially all of the students dealing with, you know, Washington's mess ups, the state capitol's mess up, Sacramento's mess up, whoever we want to blame, you guys are having to deal with that. So I applaud you on your efforts, man. I applaud
thank you.
Yeah. Again, we want to thank Rich Copenhagen, president of Save Our Schools at the College of Alameda. We'll be right back.
I borrow methods, techniques, and viewpoints from all the world's traditions.
I walk in the door and everything that was bugging me or all the thoughts that are always jumbling in my mind, they just stay outside. It's just nice to actually learn how to de-stress myself.
It's a tool to see how the mind works and then to utilize that tool to yield the best that life can offer.
I will leave the room and I will be very calm, and the whole tone of my experience calms down and everything seems to brighten up.
We can practice meditation under any circumstance whatsoever, to allow ourselves to accept things as they are, as it is.
Welcome back to Peralta Matters. I am your host, James Calhoun. Our next guest is Carlos McLean, a counselor and instructor with the Peralta Colleges for a long time. He's also the MAP project director. Carlos, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
All right. Today we're talking budget, and specifically in your capacity, I want to talk about what the budget's done faculty-wise, as well as a counselor, you've seen what it's done to the students. Let's start with you as a faculty member. How is this budget affecting you?
Okay, as a faculty member, and that's both counseling and instruction, what I found is that our numbers have gone down, way, way down.
Okay.
Our numbers of students has increased tremendously, and as a result, our classes are full, our counseling offices are full, the wait times become extended. We have a lot of students who, thank goodness, are very patient, but what is happening is that the level of service has got to go down. You can only serve so many people and only do so much at one time. With regards to instruction, the number of class sections that are being offered has been reduced. Our classes are jam-packed, and I have no idea where it's going to go from here other than to turn students away, and that hurts me all the way to the heart.
As an instructor, what is the crusade, or better yet, what's the challenge meeting you all now going forward, now that we know there's no money, now that we know there are no outlets? Is there some newfound way to teach, newfound way to understand, newfound way to reach it, so that we're not limited to throwing these students away?
I don't think there's any newfound way to do this. I think the reality is, if we're going to prepare our population, which means our students, to lead the world, to take positions that are going overseas, then somehow we've got to have fund and funding that comes into the colleges and gives these students the training, the education, and the preparation to be competitive. Otherwise, we're not going to do anything.
What, as a counselor, have you seen to bolster that, to help put these students in those positions? Is there something collectively that the PFT is doing, or collectively that instructors are putting their heads together to say, you know what, we're going to spearhead this new cause to make it so our kids are competitive?
Well, what I have found is that instructors and counselors are probably working together more now than ever. With classes being full, with our students coming in at varying degrees of preparation, what's happening is that we're finding that we've got to work together. We've got to come out, somehow find out how the services can be delivered, how we can get the students in the classes, and then we need to make sure that after that happens, that they're successful. Otherwise, they flunk out, they drop out, they leave, and we haven't done our job.
Exactly. There is a definite component to what you do at Merritt College, and that is the MAP situation. I'm sorry, the Maximum Achievement Program or Project. Let's discuss that in two terms. One, is it affected by the budget? And two, how are you not? Or how are you achieving the level of success you are without being affected by the budget?
Well, that's a very special question. And I say special because it's not affected by the budget in that our project has been funded by the Department of Education, U.S. Department of Education. And so that gives us monies to work with that we otherwise would not be able to do. And as a result, we're able to, I say, attack this problem that we have with African American males doing so poorly in school. We are able to work with retention. We're able to work with persistence, and then the support service and the wraparound services, we can do just about anything we want because we have that luxury of having a few more funds, a few more dollars in order to work with them. And as a result, what has happened is that our numbers are changing. When we first received the grant, overall, the African American male success rate, GPA, was approximately 1.6. For our project, after one semester, the GPA for the African American men in our project was 2.4. But 2.4 doesn't tell the full story. What's more important to know is that we have probably a significant number of students who have made the Dean's List, which means that they're at a 3.25 or higher. We have students in the Phi Theta Kappa International Honor Society, and we have students who are transferring. And these students are transferring with full academic scholarships. So that says some of what we're doing.
What is the basis of a MAP situation or a maximum achievement project like this that could become a model, that could become something that we interpret to all colleges and campuses? As we talked off camera, you have a women's division of that coming up. How can this be a new way, or not even a new way, but a new approach now to attack some of these financial issues?
Well, you mentioned becoming a model. The U.S. Secretary of Education, Arne Duncan, visited the campus about 3 weeks ago. And after he had a chance to hear our presentation and hear the presentation by 2 of our students.
Not even all of them. But
no,
2.
just 2. That was it. It was amazing that in his press conference right after that, he did mention the fact that MAP should be considered, and they're looking into it, of becoming a national model. So that says a whole lot about what we're doing.
It says a whole lot about Peralta Colleges, about Merritt, and about Carlos McLean.
Well, it says more about our students than Carlos, and I want to make sure that everybody understands that, because if our students don't succeed, then our program doesn't succeed, and then Carlos McLean doesn't succeed.
One more quick question about budget, and this again ties into what you said about the student service part of it. How is the campus morale, or how are you combating the campus morale when you're seeing frustration on your students, frustrating on the students you either instruct or counsel on, you know, how they're going to continue to be encouraged to stay in school when everything's being cut left and right?
Well, that's the frustrating part. You can give them a lot of words. You can give them a lot of verbal support.
Right.
But what's more important is how do we follow it up? If a student comes and says, I haven't been in school since the 7th grade, and I'm learning how to read,
wow,
and they go into a class with 40 or 50 students, we're doing a disservice. And they don't know how to ask for help until we show them that, you know, you don't have to fail, but there is a way that you can do this. There is a way that you could be successful. We see a little bit, but when we look at the numbers, it's hard to combat. And so somehow we've got to be able to find ways in order to open our doors and keep our doors open to the population that comes. If you see us sending folks away, and the CSUs are sending folks away, and even some of our private institutions are sending folks away, and the California community colleges are supposed to be open door, then open door means that there's going to be resources there to what? Open the doors, keep them open, provide the support, provide the instruction, and then help them move on to the next level. If we don't do that, then we're not doing our jobs, and somehow somebody's going to lose, and our jails become filled.
So you've got your call to do something that matters. You understand? Again, that's a good point that you mentioned about the ability to keep these doors open as a community college, because that's what we are here to do.
Right.
Again, you're watching Peralta Matters. I'm your host, James Calhoun. This is Carlos McLean, Merritt College counselor and instructor, and also the program director or project director for MAP, which is Maximum Achievement Program at Merritt College. Thank you for coming on the show, Carlos. It's been a pleasure and an education.
Well, I hope so, and I thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for watching Peralta Matters. Our show today was about the budget, and I want to thank Ron Gerhard, Carlos McLean, and Rich Copenhagen for all their words and insight on the subject. Join us for our next show, and until then, do something that matters.
Peralta TV, programs that matter. Peralta TV.